under 10.5 on the line.
You have to be the biggest, dumbest idiot.
Josh Allen inside the 10, inside 5, touchdown, game over.
Going into the draft, I was a big Penix guy. I'm still a big Penix guy.
Rashee Rice is way ahead of schedule in his ACL rehab, which is good news for his fantasy managers because the Dallas court system is way behind schedule. That's also good news for local comedian Miles Francis. Oh, hello and welcome back to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and we are adjusting the rankings. We have to. After 2 weeks of the preseason, we have to react appropriately, not overreact, not underreact to what we're seeing. And that's what we're here to talk about. If you haven't seen our first episode, we went over the honorable mentions that didn't make my top 24 currently for rookie Superflex Dynasty rankings. We are going to go from number 14. We're going to start today. So just at 202, tier 5. I'm here with, as always, with Film Demon Ryan Perrio. How are you doing, buddy?
Ooh, burning the midnight oil. Got to get my drinks. Got to get some little bit of caffeine. And
we're going to try to take this one, and we're going to try and do it a little bit faster than our first one because we had a little bit too much fun talking about these top 12 prospects. And we're going to start tier 5 with number 14 on my board, up 5 spots, actually, and that is Luther Burden for the Chicago Bears. So we got 2 Bears back-to-back. If you watch the end of last episode where we covered 1 through 13, I had Colson Loveland a tier ahead of him at 13 overall. And their second pick, Ben Johnson took Luther Burden. And I had him ranked so low in my pre-draft rankings solely because I thought he had some big-time character concerns that I saw on film with a lot of personal fouls, a lot of him being out of place at the wrong time. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened when he came into the Bears is, A, he wasn't in shape. He got injured. He wasn't happy, or Ben Johnson wasn't happy with him from day one. And then he makes some questionable decisions at practice, shows some questionable decision-making in the real-life preseason game. So because of that, I was low on him pre-draft, but the Bears spent up a lot to get him. I do think he will be an undeniable talent for them. And I think behind the scenes, they're hard on him when they're talking to the media on camera. But behind the scenes, I think they really, really love this guy. And I think Greg Olsen kind of spilled the beans on that during their preseason football game. He looked great on film. And I think this guy could be a big-time buy low candidate if he gets off to a really, really slow start in the first 4 weeks of the season, whether he's on the field or off the field. If the Bears get off to a slow start like I predict they might, he might be a great buy low candidate after the first 4 weeks. So keep an eye on him. Luther Burden, Ryan Perrio.
I think the offensive guy just loves the potential. I think the head coach hates the headache. Like, I think I think it's like you said, Greg Olsen spilled the beans. Like, I think Greg Olsen's just absolutely in Ben Johnson's ear. And Ben Johnson's kind of like, I don't know. It's, just I think when you're a head, as an offensive guy, maybe you see it, but as a head guy, I'm sure Dan Campbell kind of mentored Ben Johnson a little bit about, hey, sometimes even the best talent doesn't mean they're fit for the team. You got to sometimes make a decision on a talented guy for the betterment of the other 53 men you're leading. So I'm skeptical. Like I've seen some good plays from him, but like you said, I've also heard the practice chatter of, just not really kind of seems to be taking this seriously. Like it just seems like somebody that feels like he's already NFL ready without having to go through the NFL work.
Yep. He's too good for his own good. And I don't think he got great leadership in college either. Kind of like what kind of situation would that be? Like Johnny Manziel. Yeah. He's just so good in college. Didn't matter. He could do whatever he wanted. And he was going to get fed the rock. He also had a really low first down target rate, which was like his only big red flag analytically. And I think it's because just like the team didn't want to give him the targets. But once it came down to second and third down, when it was crunch time, when they needed the first down, they're like, I guess we'll throw a screen to Luther Burden. and that's kind of how he got all of his college production outside of a few deep balls he was lucky enough to catch from his terrible quarterback. Moving on to 15 overall. I was way ahead on this guy, way ahead of market on this guy pre-draft. Now I think I'm behind market pre-draft after the draft. Kyle Williams for the New England Patriots. Pre-draft, I had him at 20 overall, so right at the end of the second round. And if you had a post-draft Superflex Dynasty draft, Kyle Williams was going way, way before then, at least in my experience. I loved him. His film-wise, like a deep, dark sleeper. And he is a little bit undersized, though. Let's be real. He wasn't drafted in the second round. He's drafted in the third round. So let's be real. I would say like a stable situation in New England. Diggs, however, does look amazing. So for early on production, I have a little bit of a question mark over Kyle Williams' head. A little bit undersized, which we don't love in Dynasty Fantasy Football. But still, I think potentially the cream's going to rise to the top. And Kyle Williams is going to find his way onto a football field. And I think it's going to be pretty darn good when that happens, Ryan Perrio.
Yeah, and what a good player. What a great player as an undersized receiver to really kind of watch even. You don't have to even talk to him. But, I mean, you probably do. But, to watch Stephon Diggs work and just see what he does and to be able to just osmosis that kind of, okay, this is what I need to have to be successful as maybe a undersized receiver in the NFL. And so I think it's a great situation for him. I think it's a great situation if for some reason Diggs goes down or gets suspended for whatever things he does on boats. I don't think
he's getting suspended for that. I think that's water under the bridge. I think they got bigger fish to fry in Rashee Rice.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like if something else like that happens again, like if it's a continuing thing with Stephon Diggs, like to me, it seems like the more you haven't given him a long-term contract, the more things you read about him part with as far as character concerns. So it's like, it's very strange that they didn't really bubble up until after the trade. And then after Houston, like, it feels like, the more he gets these short-term deals, the more it just seems like he's kind of either upset and just kind of partying instead of, where he was doing before. Or I
would think the same thing, Ryan Perry, but he came off this ACL and he was way ahead of schedule. So it must mean he's working hard, right?
Yeah. He's working hard, but I just feel like there's all kinds of stories out there about.
There's always been stories. It goes all the way back to Minnesota when was it Adam Thielen who asked the boys who would you least like to date your sister? I think was the question, and literally everyone on the team said Stephon Diggs. Every single person, and they're all like, "Why'd you say that?" And then nobody would answer. The best, and that was an actual Minnesota Vikings from the way I remember it. That was produced by the Minnesota Vikings social media team, and I think that has to be the best social media content that's been put out in that 10 years of the internet. I would say Ryan Perrio.
Yeah. I think he's a great buy low candidate. I think, he could be a second half if the Patriots are way out of it, where the Patriots are saying, you know what, let's get some of these young guys out there. So you might see the, our honorable mentions out there, your Chisholms and Kyle Williams out there second half, just to kind of, because you got to get Drake May, working with these guys. You can't just have them bench, especially if it's a season where you're not going to go anywhere. If you're 2-7, what's the harm? It can only go up.
Well, I think they're gonna be a little bit better than that, especially after they allegedly trade for Trey Hendrickson. Might be coming over there to New England. They have a lot of cap space still. They could pay him.
Yeah, but I mean, even say it's 5 and 6. At some point, do you start to say, hey, let's go ahead and get the rookies out here?
I just want to see what Vrabel does there before I talk about any records that they're going to have. He might just turn that whole thing around in 2 months, and they'll get off to a little bit of a slow start. But anyways, even if they do get off to a good start, Ryan Perrio, kind of my point here is I think Kyle Williams still finds his way on the football field, either by injuries and then he's undeniable when he gets on the football field, or he just takes over. Because outside of Diggs, I fear no offensive pass catcher on this team outside of maybe Travion Henderson to take away any Kyle Williams target potential. So that's why I have him here at 15. I think he's a good value there. You might not get him. The redraft community overreacted to him in pre-draft best ball tournaments. You could get that guy in round 20, and now you have a tough time like getting him if you're drafting like the 12th round. So a little bit of an overcorrection there for Kyle Williams. I hope it is sky's the limit for him, because if it is, I'm going to win a lot of preseason best ball tournaments, because I was all over him. I drafted him more than anybody in the 20th round in those drafts. Moving on to a guy who was not on my radar at all. I don't think anybody has this guy on their preseason best ball drafts, and probably don't have him a lot in Best Ball Mania because he kind of came on late. Or if you heard about him, you thought they were lying. But KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith, out of nowhere, just all of a sudden is the starter for the team with the help of Trey Harris holding out and coming in a little bit out of shape, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. He was not on my radar. Like I said, not in my top 24, not in my top 40 players in this draft class. Of course, Quentin Johnson, first kind of opportunity of preseason, drops a bomb, gets his head taken off, full concussion, full fencing position, and KLS all of a sudden is the next man up. Trey Harris is playing like into the third and fourth quarter, which isn't good if you had him ranked in your top 5 pre-draft, in your pre-draft rankings. He looks amazing.
Yeah.
Looks undeniable. He's running like 100% with the starters. Like, I get it. Keenan Allen's there, and everyone wants to, including you, Ryan Perrio, making a big excuse for Roma Dunze, and everyone's going to be like, okay, KLS is going to get Roma Dunze. Trey Harris is going to get Roma Dunze. I think we've seen the best that Keenan Allen has to offer, and I think we're going to see him more as a off the bench sort of player in this phase of his career.
Yeah, I see him as wide receiver 4 at best. Like, he's going to be the guy that when the other 3 receivers take all the coverage 10 yards downfield, he's going to stay about 5 to 7 and be open.
He's in his Hopkins era, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked KLS. Like, I think he, out of Auburn, he's a really good receiver. But I mean, again, and the draft, when you watch the draft and you see all these wide receivers stay on the board past the draft, round 7 stuff. So, good wide receivers every year stay even to undrafted, but cornerbacks, and you couldn't find a cornerback after round 4 that, they were just going off the board. And so you've got a young kid who wants to play football, and wide receivers flashy, but man, those NFL just can't get enough cornerbacks. So you might want to add that to your bag of practice habits, just to try to maybe, strengthen your odds. Cause it just seems like wide receiver, even though, sorry, I'm rambling, it's elite position, it's just not drafted very highly. And so you get these guys like Keandre Lambert-Smith who fall, but now just, secure themselves a roster spot. And
I think it's tough to scout some of these guys in terms of, like, you don't know exactly the situation they're in. You don't know how good their quarterback is, because sometimes you get to the real life NFL and you find out the reason that player was so successful is because they had a good quarterback. But the also is opposite is true. Sometimes quarterbacks will get pumped up in college because they have elite targets to throw to. So it's kind of like chicken or egg, and you got to figure out and sift through the mess to figure it out. And sometimes even guys like me who are super degenerates let guys like KLS fall through the cracks who are obviously just like undeniable talents. So speaking of which, this is my Puka Nacua. So KLS, again, another undersized wide receiver. I might want to, now that I'm thinking about it, saying this out loud, adjust these rankings. Deontay Thornton for the Las Vegas Raiders, yard per route run king in college, didn't get a lot of opportunity for whatever reason. RIP Jack Besh, by the way. He's like an afterthought as soon as Deontay Thornton walked on campus there in Las Vegas. He's got the size. He's got the speed. I have not seen an all 22 clip of him getting covered well. And I think like Geno Smith, he did this right when he missed him. on one of those deep balls. He went like this, and I was thinking to myself, we were that close for Deontay Thornton's stock to skyrocket if he caught that, because he was targeted a lot. And I'm not a big first read guy usually, because I'm like, how do you know, guy who's charting this, who the true first read was? Because if you're charting Matt Stafford's never actually looking at his first read first. The same thing can be said about Aaron Rodgers. So how do you really know? But I will say Geno Smith, like pretty much every drop back he had with Deontay Thornton on the field, which was like every one of his plays, by the way, day one starter, he was looking right at Deontay Thornton, because we're like, we're going deep first, and if he's triple covered, we'll hit somebody else the opposite side. So it's either him or Brock Bowers, I think, are the number one, number two pass catchers, two target getters on this team. Well, Myers maybe edges him out, but for deep ball, high value targets, I really like Deontay Thornton. I think the sky's the limit for him. And this is my number one buy low candidate. This is the guy that you can dump your fab on if he's still in the waivers, which he might be. That's where I got him, because he was way off of everybody's radar, even post-draft, because he went so late. But just stepped on campus day one and was the starter, and his film has looked elite since then and hasn't gotten super lucky catching the deep balls yet, but it's coming, and I guarantee it's coming. Ryan Perrio, what do you think?
I really like Deontay Thornton. I also like the situation. You've got a new head coach there and you're trying to turn the Raiders around. Like, the Raiders have been kind of, a middling to laughing stock team for the better part of 20 years now. And, you what better way to really change a culture than to find a 5th round stud for wide receiver?
Yeah, they can't draft receivers in the 1st round, right, Ryan Perro? They have to go into the 5th round and to find one this time.
When you draft Ashton Genty with your 1st round pick, I mean, you're pretty good haul right there. And like I said, to a 5th round wide receiver that could pan out to be your number one is found money. It's like finding $100 bill in a parking lot.
That's Amon-Ra, baby. That's big time.
Yeah. And so hopefully, like I said, I'm excited to see what the Raiders look like with competent quarterback play and a budding running back, and potentially, a Z or, Z receiver, at least for now, and Thornton with Brock Bowers already there at tight end, kind of getting some shave from Hunter Renfro about shaving his head completely off, saying these young balding guys that gotta tough it out. It's my best clip of the day that I saw today was Hunter Renfro saying, kind of quit on me by shaving his head off, or all his hair off.
I'm totally confident with that. I will eventually be going bald. You can see here. You can see if I had a camera right here, you'd have a great spot of my bald spot right back there. So shout out to owning your baldness at the age of 23 to Brock Bowers. So I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. With that being said, don't know if I like the look. I like the Rich Eisen. If he just went full Rich Eisen with his haircut, I mean, sky's the limit for Brock Bowers. Maybe a red flag that he totally shaved it off. But either way, I don't think Bowers is going to help or is it going to hurt Deontay Thornton in his role. I think he's kind of the opposite of him.
Yeah.
And the offense, I will say, a little bit of a red flag. They're definitely building in the opposite direction, like they're building around their skill positions in Vegas and not really investing, I think, enough in terms of draft capital, at least in the offensive line. Maybe they're average this year, but it feels like they might not be that good. And maybe the skill position players will overcome it. Maybe they'll be more of like an average offense. I think you and I are both pretty optimistic about it, but it does have to be noted that maybe that offensive line is going to be a massive issue for all these guys we've been talking about all offseason. Yeah,
it can be. Like, it's very rare that, a team can rebuild their entire offense in a year, or, just, I would say, outside of the Texans and the Reds and the Commanders the last 2 years, it's really kind of, they made it seem like it can happen every year, but it's just those two have been anomalies to the nth degree as far as just 1 year turnarounds from, this Texans drafted, traded their first for next year to draft, Will Anderson. And, don't know if that pick will be a top 5 pick next year, and lo and behold, it didn't. So
I will say the good news for fantasy football purposes for all of these guys on the Raiders offense is that they also didn't invest in the defense at all outside of keeping Crosby on board. That defense is probably going to be pretty bad again this year. So they might have like a little bit of like a mini Bengals situation where their defense is just so bad that their fantasy assets on the offensive side of the ball are going to get elevated because they're just going to need to score 40 points to win football games next season. Moving on to 18 overall, another wide receiver. And I'm going to let you cook on this one because I know you love this guy. He's like your number 2 on your draft board, I think. Matthew Golden, first round drafted player, obviously. The first round draft pick for the Packers. Ironically, I think he's going to be a total bust. And the reason for that is his lack of efficiency. It was big red flags in college. If you like him because of like a 4-game playoff sample size. I get it. That's against the best opponents. That's when you want him to shine. I get that. I hear that. I feel that. But still at the same time, I'm like, these historical trends of profiles like Matthew Golden, even throw in his fake 4.29 40-yard dash time, it's a big red flag, and I think he was overdrafted because of that 40-yard dash time. And for that reason, I think he's going to be a big-time bust. He's virtually undraftable for me, but he's one of your favorite players, Ryan Perrio. Go ahead.
Yeah. I believe the opposite of that. I think he is a I will take the opposite turn. I look at a guy that's a skilled catch and traffic machine, which is going to be pretty much the norm in the NFL. I think he reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs as far as the on-field. Like he's fast, but he's also very good feet. I think he displayed that skill. I think he became the best target for Quinn Ewers, who
stinks.
Yeah, just not the greatest quarterback throwing to you. So I think with a more talented QB throwing him passes, I think he has the ability to be the Packers' #1 receiver because that's what they drafted him to be. They need a leader. I'm sure everybody will say, well, there's so many targets. Well, yeah, but none of those targets were reliable. Like every one of those every target that every receiver on that team had one game where it looked like, oh, it looks like it's going to be Romeo Doubs as the guy. And then next week, 2 catches, 17 yards. They need someone with consistency. I think that's going to be Matthew Golden.
Yeah, I do also have concerns about whose day it's going to be, but you are correct. He was drafted to be the #1 wide receiver there from day one. So he's going to get the opportunity, I think, at least. We'll see if he squanders it or not. Ryan Perrio, and it's just Tucker Craft season is what all the fantasy analysts are saying out there. Anyways, moving on to 19, my sweet prince. I had this guy rated so high. Now you're kind of coming around to him. You're kind of excited about Trey Harris, who my biggest faller. He was 8 overall in my pre-draft rankings. And I think he held out. And I think we saw him right after the holdout in that Lions Hall of Fame game. And I think it was a big red flag that he looked as out of shape as he did. And I get it. He's healthy, so he's not like blown a hamstring or anything like that. So he must have been working out a little bit, and maybe he just needed to get a little bit more work in. And that's what we saw in his final game of the preseason this past week. And like I said, these Lions backups, they came out ready to play. They'd been practicing hard. Trey Harris had not been with the team because he'd been holding out for this fully guaranteed second-round contract while KLS was taking over, who I now have ranked ahead of him in rookie rankings, despite him being ranked behind. The only other case of that would be, I guess, Jack Besh and Dante Thornton that we just discussed. Still pre-draft, I was a big believer in his talent. Season got cut short on another massive yard per route run. Demon in college was super efficient until he went down. I think if he would have played the whole season and if he would have stayed on the direct trajectory he was on in the first half of the season, in the second half of the season, sky's the limit. He would have gone in Matthew Golden's draft position. Instead, he gets injured and kind of falls in the draft, has a disappointing combine coming off of that injury, and just a couple of red flags that I cannot ignore. However, he did look really, really good in like the third and fourth quarter of this last week with the preseason. Now, the big negative for all of this is, especially for us when we can't see him practice, is they're done for the preseason because they had a week 0 preseason game. So we're not going to see him at all in week 3 of the preseason. I'm not concerned about his roster spot. He's a second-round draft pick, for goodness sakes, fully guaranteed contract. So I'm not concerned about that at all. It's not going to be like he's going to be on the practice squad. But I do think Keenan Allen has the power to keep him off the field, especially now that KLS is number 1, and obviously Ladada Mahonkany is the true all-star number 1 there in LA. So Trey Harris all the way down to 19. I know you are rising on him, Ryan Perrio.
I liked him. I just think the issue with him is that Ole Miss doesn't have a real like short intermediate game, and I think that really Jim Harbaugh does, and I think that it's going to be a year of learning for him. I think he's another elite stash that I think it's once he gets the playbook and maybe he gets a little bit more of the underneath route tree does develop for him, that the sky's the limit. But the problem is Ole Miss basically runs intermediate to deep routes most of the time, and so in the NFL that's good to have, but they also need you to run a 10-yard skinny post, and sometimes, and
maybe that's the cope, Ryan Perrio, right? And that is true. He was asked to do a lot of different things in preseason compared to what he was asked to do for Ole Miss. So the cope is they're trying him out in new positions in the preseason, and when the regular season comes around, they're just going to have him play his usual routes in his usual position, have him develop those other routes later on in his career. With that being said, like he still wasn't running with the ones when KLS was. So that's the real disappointing part of it.
That's a disappointing part, but again, it might be just like I said, it's also the price you pay of, coming in late from injury and stuff like that. You're just behind. And unfortunately, a lot of NFL teams don't have time to sit with you and catch you up. You have to kind of catch up on your own, or catch up in the regular season. And I think he could be one of those guys that comes out, year 2 and just has a monster season. But I do believe that the Ole Miss offense does kind of hinder skill position players. Like even you look at, outside of Jackson Dart anomaly, like there's a lot of those skill position players that take a year. AJ Brown, it took a year.
He's a great AJ Brown comp, isn't he?
Yeah. Like it took them a year to kind of grasp it. DJ didn't, because he's just big and fast. But he didn't have a complete route tree when he came out. He was just a straight line speed guy. So it's like those guys, while they're holy Jesus, they are definitely winning the sweatpants, the pre-draft Olympics. It's just once you get on the football field, we need you to run these specific plays, and you don't have the ability to do that out of the gate. You're behind.
Yeah, I am hopeful for him, and I was just about to say, like, he's got year 2, year 3, like Jamison Williams style breakout kind of written all over him. Not the character concern side of things, I think, more of just like off to a really, really slow start, and hopefully he'll kind of break out and start to shine with the help of a couple of injuries. Keenan Allen's going to have this heel thing pop up at some point this season again, so don't have to worry about that too much. He could earn a spot as the 4, but that's why I think KLS is just so exciting right now, and you should be like dumping your fab on him because he probably went undrafted in your leagues, and he's going to be the number 1. He's going to be a starter day 1 behind Ladada Mahonkany. Going on to our number 20, and we've talked so much about this guy, so I'm just going to say Travis Hunter, the 2nd overall pick in the real life NFL draft, is currently undraftable for me, and I would have a tough time. I wanted to put him higher just because of his draft capital, but I would have a tough time drafting Dante Thornton behind. I would have a tough time passing on Dante Thornton. So maybe I draft him ahead of Matthew Golden. Maybe I draft him ahead of Trey Harris, where we're sitting right now. But other than that, I don't think I can dump a bucket on Travis Hunter. He's going to get a lot of opportunity. I don't think it's going to pan out. Undersized wide receiver. And if you have him on your roster, he would be like my number one sell high candidate right now.
Yeah.
Please get out if you can, because you're going to get top 5 rookie draft capital for him. And I don't think he's going to pan out on that. We've talked a lot about Travis Hunter, and if you disagree with this take, just scroll back anywhere in any previous podcast we've had. We've talked way too much about how we are kind of down on Travis Hunter. He's down 12 spots for me, by the way. I was much higher on him pre-draft, and all my concerns I had of him pre-draft I saw in the in the preseason, and I think it's obviously going to carry over to the regular season. So kind of my priors were confirmed, and I'm moving him out even farther, Ryan Perrio.
Yeah, I agree. Just trade. I would say he's your trade bait. If you're in need of a position, or if you want to just really invest in potentially getting Arch Manning next year in next year's draft, then just go ahead and trade him now while you've got the highest value, because I think once the regular season starts and the player starts showing his warts, you're going to see a lot of roster moves is going to be my take.
Yeah, he's going crazy high in startup drafts. We already talked about. He's going pretty high in redraft as well. And yeah, we don't see it. We were told all offseason last year, I'll leave it at this, that Brian Thomas Jr., all the beat readers he's just not looking very good in camp. You're not seeing much hype about him. And then just day one, week one, he's an absolute assassin, no matter who the quarterback is for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now we're meant to believe that these Jaguar beat writers who are super high on Travis Hunter, now they're right when they totally faded Brian Thomas. These people are not people we should respect or even listen to in terms of them predicting the future. So I'll leave it at that in Travis Hunter. I think we've beaten that horse to death, and we'll see how it pans out. But I feel pretty good about our take on him. And there's a lot of really the underdog guys. They love Travis Hunter. They think he's the number one wide receiver in this class, is pure wide receiver, and I just don't see it. All right, moving on to tier 6, our last little tier here. This guy's actually up 2 spots. I liked him pre-draft. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks pre-draft. Dillon Gabriel, the lefty, the white lefty playing for Cleveland Browns. I do have him, I'll spoiler alert this, 22 Shedeur Sanders right behind him, just because Dillon Gabriel is clearly the favorite. And he looked good. He looked good in his preseason debut for the Browns coming off of his hamstring. He will be a sneaky running upside quarterback. He's got a little bit of athleticism and a little bit of wiggle to him. So for fantasy football purposes, obviously that's a big plus. You didn't see that in the preseason game because it was a preseason game and he was sliding when he got outside the pocket. And I like that. That's smart. He's at the depth chart for Shedeur, so I have to have him here. The only problem with Shedeur is he's on the Browns. He fell in the draft. So I think the talent's there for him, and his cream will rise to the top eventually, but unfortunately that might be in 6 years when he's not with the Cleveland Browns anymore. So Dillon Gabriel, my 21, Shedeur Sanders, my 22. I had him 16th overall. So I wasn't super high on Shedeur pre-draft, but now I think we're seeing a little bit of maybe an overcorrection if you have him outside of your top 2 rounds after what we saw in the preseason game with Shedeur. Superflex Dynasty football, worth it to go ahead and throw a dart at one of these guys.
Yeah, my fears kind of came to the realization on the fumble play where he was trying to hand off because he's just not. When you're short and you got to reach, it's just bad things happen, and again, that's what happens when you lack prototypical size. And some of that stuff be cleaned up, but it's when you have to try to really reach out there and get that ball to that running back who's kind of running a slant away from you. It's just that's going to be the hard part for him. Is just like I said, the physical size is going to play a role. I thought he did a great job as far as I believe he's an absolute elite backup. He's definitely if he's going to be in this league a while, at least as a backup. I don't know if he'll make it as a starter, but I could see him being the elite guy that you want with your rookie quarterback in the film room telling him you can't do this. This is why you can't do that. Like he has
2 Super Bowl champions on that roster, Ryan Perrio.
Yeah. But I mean,
Super Bowl quarterbacks.
but you could just tell like he had the X's and O's down on all of his plays. Like you could tell he had his head in that playbook and he knew where to go, when to go with it. You know, he kind of got greedy on one play, and I don't know if the tight end ran the wrong route because it looked like he was going to the receiver.
Somebody did.
And the tight end is just tight end's like, hey, fancy meeting you here. Yeah. And then
you never a good sign when your receiver you just targeted does this.
Yeah.
On offense. That's usually a pretty bad sign.
Yeah.
But Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, any last words on those guys?
I just think Shedeur, I don't know if he'll ever, I guess I just don't see starter. Like you've got to see, I would see more physical, like it's got to have more velocity on those throws. Like there's got to be some zip, you know, to really, I think, make it in the NFL. Like you've got to have a little bit more sizzle on your throws. When you like, let's go back to the New Orleans with Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough. Spencer Rattler has a noticeable more oomph on his throw than Tyler Shough. Like to me, that's the level you have to kind of be at. But you also want them to be smart enough to not make turnovers. And so I think they're elite backups, but I don't know if they'll ever be like elite starters or, 17-week starters. They may be spot starts, bridges, but I don't see them.
Superflex, that's valuable.
Okay.
That's why I have them there, because in Superflex, especially deep leagues, you're rostering basically every backup, and you're sometimes rostering like the third backup, especially if you can stash them on the taxi squad, because when the starter goes down, now all of a sudden that's a great asset for you, either to trade away that season for some draft capital for a win now team, or the team that just lost that starting quarterback, or you can start them if you're quarterback needy. So they're pretty valuable assets. So that's why I have them both there, because I kind of agreed with you coming out of college. I kind of had them both as like a good backup kind of grade. Unfortunately, they're both on the same team, so that's not good. But they also both look great in preseason when I kind of expected them to fail, honestly. Yeah. So I just have to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where Shedeur gets traded to. I think that's the goal now that both of them have shown very well. I think that at some point
they keep on floating that they're gonna roster 4 quarterbacks at least to start the season. Now the real monkey wrench in this whole situation is Deshaun Watson's coming back this year. Like he's dropping back and throwing, and like he's not full contact yet, but he's pretty far along in his second Achilles recovery after the setback the first time around. So that's really going to throw a wrench into things. They are going to have to cut one of those guys. They can't cut Watson, obviously, just contractually. It's just not going to happen. I think he has like an $80 million cap hit next season. Deshaun Watson does. So that should be fun for whoever's behind that offensive line next year. But anyways, I like both of these guys. Unfortunately, I think both of these guys stay on the football team, and I think they cut Kenny Pickett. I think that's and I was right about Flacco starting. I think I'm going to be right about this. I think that's why they have Pickett unofficially listed as the second string quarterback as trade bait. However, I will say I'm not as confident on that take as I was about Joe Flacco getting the starting role. I'm a little bit confused as to what the Browns' plans are at quarterback for the rest of the season. And I think they might be as well, Ryan Perrio.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. And hopefully it'll be the GM and head coach very soon, I'm hoping. Moving on to 23 overall. The second guy not on my radar at all pre-draft, Isaac Tesla. Tesla is how you're supposed to pronounce it. You'll never hear me say it like that. I'm always going to say Isaac Tesla. For the Detroit Lions, an electric car company in the Motor City. Is it going to work? Seems like it will. He's big, he's tall, he's fast. He had no college production because his college starting quarterback hated him. The Lions trade away 3 third-round draft picks to move up to get Isaac Tesla. and they're like, oh, dang, we really missed out on that guard from LSU. And they ended up falling to him in like the 6th round or whatever. So that was pretty sweet too. He's looked great in preseason. He improves every week we see him, which is great news. You don't even have to ask any of the Lions about Isaac Tesla. You can just say like, oh, what do you think about how everyone's playing this year? And Jared Goff will be like, you know what, this Isaac Tesla guy. I'm like, whoa, Jared, we didn't even ask you about Isaac Tesla. Everybody, Penny Sewell's talking about how great of a blocker he is. And obviously that's how you get on the field in Detroit. If you block, you get the rock. And that's why it took J-Mo so long to get the rock, is because he wouldn't block. And he probably also didn't know the plays. And he probably also was suspended for a lot of that too, which led to his demise. But Isaac Tesla, I think, will be the number 3 wide receiver very soon. I imagine him and Tim Patrick will be kind of mixing in early on, and he'll just become undeniable. And he's like one injury away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, God forbid, knock on wood, or Jameson Williams, knock on wood, God forbid, J-Mo goes down this season. He's one injury away from just being forced to being the number 2 guy on this offense, which is going to be probably the number 2 offense again this season, if I had to guess. So that's why I have Isaac Tesla, number 23. Go ahead and draft him. I give you permission to draft him at the end of the 2nd round, Ryan Perrio.
I think he'll be solid. I think he's more of a stash. I think Detroit's got,
for sure.
He's got so many weapons, like it's not going to be worth rostering him. I think even if he does, get out there, I think he's he's your prime taxi squad with
taxi
eyes.
Squad. Put him in there for sure. Moving on to number 24, the end of my list. And there's a few guys I wanted to put here, but I just had to slide in a 4th tight end here because I think he could develop into something really special. And another great taxi squad candidate, Elijah Arroyo, kicked Noah Fant out of town, kicked Noah Fant packing like day one. They saw this guy at rookie minicamp, and they're like, I think we'll be good with Noah Fant. See you later, alligator. And Noah Fant, I think, is still good. Cincinnati picked him up right away. So I think the NFL thinks he's good. I think Elijah Arroyo is just going to be a really solid tight end for this team. Now, the big concern here, the reason he's this far down in my rankings, the sole reason is because his blocking looked really bad in preseason. Run blocking and pass blocking, from what I saw, was not great. I don't think he had many pass block opportunities, but he did have some run block opportunities, and it looked bad just like it did in college. He was a big, tough guy for me to scout and build a profile on pre-draft, just because I loved a lot of what he had to show, and I didn't like a couple of other things, including his run after catch, run after contact in particular. He kind of goes down with like a light trip to his ankle. Now, he's a big, tall guy, so maybe he kind of grows out of that and gains a little bit of balance. And he is fast in space, so if he does get in some space, he's kind of gone, which is good, obviously. A lot of question marks in the air of like the target competition. He'll probably be the tight end 2 to start the season behind, I believe his name's Ruckert over there. So he'll probably be like a taxi squad candidate, but a guy who's too good to ignore, and a guy who sent Noah Fant packing. So you got to give him credit and put him here over Torrey Horton, for example, was a guy I was really struggling putting here, or a guy like you said, Tyler Shuck, your guy you like talking about in old quarterback too. So he was another reason I don't have him here. And it's never good when you're losing a quarterback battle to Spencer Rattler, when everybody's saying, and I do respect the beat writers in New Orleans, I do think a lot of them do know what they're talking about. They've been there for a while. When everyone's saying like team looks pretty good, like these guys look good, it's just the quarterbacks suck. it's kind of when you're getting reports out of camp that both quarterbacks suck and you're the number 2 out of the sucky quarterbacks. That's not good. And Spencer Rattler, like 5th round pick last year, so they have an even less draft capital in Spencer Rattler as they do Tyler Shuck, and he's older than Spencer Rattler by I think a full year. So that's the reason I have him out. Bill Krosky Merritt, 7th round pick. Reasons to be excited. Maybe you get him early 3rd round. Definitely get him off of waiver wires if you can, because there's a good drumbeat going for him. But he's still Austin Eckler is still on the team, and I think a lot of the reason they want to trade Brian Robinson away is because Austin Eckler looked really good last year, and he might be a bounce back candidate. And I have not been drafting him at all, but I'm starting to be worried about that. Anyways, any takes on any of the honorable mentions I just mentioned and Elijah Arroyo?
I like Elijah Arroyo. I think he kind of is a Jeremy Shockey light. Like he's maybe just less physical. I still believe Tyler Shuck will win the QB battle. If everything's even, you're probably going to pick your guy. Like all the reports I've seen have been the quarterback is pretty evenly matched, even though it's neither of them have really wowed. Like I think that they're going to go with their guy, and that at that point, I think Spencer Rattler's mistakes are just more egregious. It's like you've been a year in the NFL. How do you not know to cover up the football when you scramble? How do you let fumbles and strip sacks and things like that happen? Like the highs are really high, but the lows are like, what are you doing, buddy? What are we doing?
I think we had some boneheaded plays out of Tyler Shuck on film in college. We haven't seen him quite as much, although off the top of my head, I think we saw a couple of real boneheaded plays out of Tyler Shuck in his first preseason matchup.
He made one welcome to NFL throw on an out route, and then I think. But other than that, though, the problem with Tyler Shuck is why he didn't go late first. Is he's not he doesn't have any kind of daring mentality. Like he's definitely captain check down. Like he will frustratingly, be conservative. And I think to be at the top level of a quarterback, you have to have a little bit of a gunslinger. And if you don't have that gun, if you're just basically holstering your weapon at all times, it's, you're gearing yourself up to be like an extremely elite backup. But I think right now he is the better quarterback choice for the Saints of the two.
I think we saw Tyler Shuck, now that you mentioned that, a camp rep or two out of Tyler Shuck where on 7-on-7s, he did not throw the football. He scrambled out of bounds on 7-on-7s with no pass rush. So that's not a good sign when you're feeling pass rush when there's 7-on-7, no one's on the football field. If
there's a reason that Tyler Shuck benched, that would be why he would go to second string, is just because you want a quarterback that's out there. Let's go. We got one drive to win this. And if you're going to sit there and check out and not take a shot, but he's shown some plays where he's taken some deep shots and everything. So I was impressed that he was not as conservative in his second preseason game where he threw that long touchdown pass to Tipton. But like I said, they both kind of have like if you could combine both of them into one person, I think they would become Josh Allen. Like I think they would be Josh Allen with their combined great skills, and then their combined like blahs. They would become Josh Allen, because Josh Allen does have some of those WTF throws sometimes. It's like, what are we doing, buddy?
A little Wentz in him. Got a little Wentz in him for sure. So I'm 2 for 2 on quarterback competitions, by the way, this offseason, which I'm usually pretty good about, I feel like. So I think I'm going to go Spencer Rattler.
Okay.
So if I can run, I called Daniel Jones, which nobody called. I was the only one to call Daniel Jones, so good for me. I also called Joe Flacco, which was like the odds-on betting favorite to get the week 1 starting quarterback position. So not
good for
as big of a pat on the back for me for that one, but I was very confident about that one. I will say Spencer Rattler, I'm growing in confidence based on what I'm hearing out of the Twitter sphere, Ryan Perrio. Are you saying who's week 1 starter?
I say Tyler Shuck.
Okay, so we disagree. We didn't even really ever discuss Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. I don't think you and
I thought nobody wins that. Since Daniel Jones got named the starter, that's good for Daniel Jones, but that's really bad for the Colts GM.
He's the one who signed Daniel Jones. He was the one who brought him on after he saw what he saw. And look, he could have traded up in the draft. He didn't.
He wanted CJ Stroud. So they thought if the Texans didn't take CJ Stroud at 2, that we would have had hell to pay for the Cardinals to get CJ Stroud at 3, because then that would have brought every team. I think they really wanted to sit him, and I think that they just got too enamored with the good to really consider the bad. Like because he looks like an NFL blitz player. Like I will not lie. Like that guy, when you play the old NFL blitz where those guys are just all muscle rocked up, it's like, holy crap, this guy's, and he runs a 4.4 40. Like he is He's a
all natural.
monster.
I don't think he trains hard at all. He just woke up like that. It's crazy. Some guys got it, some guys don't. And you know what, Ryan Perrio? I feel like we got it. We got it right.
We definitely
We got every single. We were a little bit off pre-draft, and now we're 100% right. We did disagree on a couple of guys. Matthew Golden, if you didn't watch that first episode, go back and watch it because it is entertaining. And keep watching these Dynasty fantasy football videos. I really appreciate you guys watching. That's why we keep doing it. And if you guys keep watching, we'll keep making them. So thank you for Ryan Perrio. My name is Jamie Jakes. Please subscribe. Good night.